7 o'clock.
There's no clue.
Our meeting to order. All stand, please, and join us as we honor America with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Item on the agenda is public comment. We do have a public present tonight, so you all are here for a public comment or an item on the agenda?
We were here because we thought the high school project was going to be on the agenda from when I talked to you on last week.
No, it's all approved.
What?
What, you mean that what we approved at the town meeting?
No, she said the high school
The high
project.
school, the closeout of the high school project. You said it was going to be on the agenda tonight.
Oh.
and we thought
Oh.
you should be here.
Oh. No, I'm sorry.
On
No,
Friday.
is that what I
We
said?
have a meeting with us on Monday, and they were going to go.
Yeah, no,
again, and
but we couldn't put, no, it's not on, it isn't on the agenda. My conversation was, I wanted to meet with you guys after we talked about it, with, the two chairs talking about it.
Okay.
I misunderstood. Oh, I did?
Here.
Oh,
We
I-
thought we should part.
oh, God,
Conversation.
I apologize. We spent a lot of time reviewing and going through the process. But just to let you know, since it's on the thing, I mean, we are digging through every record that we have, and including email records, to see if there's communications. And obviously, there's some communications we're all looking for, and to let you know that, and Joyce and I sat a long time, and we basically went every aspect of it and where we're looking. So I might as well, since we're here, you asked the question. We're referring to the closeout, and there's some information that the state isn't able to find and not there regarding one of the changes for furniture primarily, and that's in
There's two
two.
items that the state is questioning based on the meeting. Kristen Casal from the school, Jill, our finance director, and myself were at a meeting with Michelle Dixon to talk about the process and where we were. There's two items of concern to them, one being furniture and fixtures, FF&E, and how the approval of purchasing the last group of furniture occurred. And the other item is the last change order that needed to be submitted, and we're having trouble finding record of that being submitted. They did not actually go through in depth their records. They had just recently, within the last, 2 months, moved to a new location. So we actually have a group going this Thursday.
Maybe.
To
Well, weather permitting.
to sort through exactly what they have for records there, and that gives us a good idea of what we need to find or don't need to find. That project, they're very interested in closing it out, and we certainly are too. If you remember correctly, we have talked about that, we know that there's a square footage. We've exceeded the square footage allotment per student, so that impacts what our reimbursement will be. There will probably be some other items, as there always is, that, they're going to fight us on as to whether or not they'll cover it. If you remember the Bolton Center School project, there was $500,000 that they wanted back because they considered the square footage. They had the gym as 2 stories. So there's always things that you find. The number of choice students that we have found out subsequently, Kristen has, that they've not taken into account the amount of that grant. And they are holding, right now, we've always used the number of 600,000. Actually, we're like at 535, 550,000 of our money that they're holding. What that is, if we have no deductions, we will get that back and be at zero. There's no additional revenue to the town, it's zero, it's a wash. What usually happens in their projects, and that's how they know to hold 5%, that between what they hold and that zero, there's usually someplace in between that they keep some of that money for things that they have not approved. That is the amount of money we have talked about continuously that we will then have to look to borrow, take out a fund balance, or some other means to fund it, because we cannot continually loan ourselves the money.
So that's that's in essence where we are, and so we're really targeting and it's a time, it was a time frame through it's after, we had several changes unfortunately, prior to our more stable superintendent coming in for a while, we had this roulette wheel coming through, and and the same thing. And we were both
Right.
we were both changing personnel at one time, and it just made it, and it just makes it difficult to find that trail, because you're looking at from different people initiating communications with the state.
So I just want to let you know, because I didn't get a chance to share this with Joyce today, because I haven't finished going through. I'm sorry, yes. I apologize. Kristen Heck, Superintendent of Schools. I don't live here, but I work here. I have spent a lot of time with Alan, our technology person from CREC, combing through one of my predecessors' emails, Paul Smith, to try to find things. So I have a final set, I think, tomorrow to review, unless I have an aha moment at 3 o'clock this morning again and have another search that I may want him to do tomorrow. So I will send you what I found that I think is of any pertinence to this matter.
Is it a received and sent?
Some are received and sent, some are received with attachments, some are sent with attachments. So I will
Got the whole,
get you whatever it is that I can find that is of relevance, I believe, to this matter.
And we might need to do the same thing with the interim.
Yeah, and so that was on my
Probably
list
is a little bit more
with Joe's, it's probably
complicated.
with,
And that is, Kristen is the fourth superintendent with this project. On the town side, we're on our fourth finance director with the project.
so I'll send it to you and we'll see what we can find.
awesome. Thank you.
My understanding from, I talked to two people who were at the meeting, at the Board of Education meeting last week, and I heard both of iterations of what took place at that meeting. And from what I understand is that the FF&E budget is not the only issue. There's a reimbursement too that the town had available to it that was not requested. So Joyce, could you fill us in, or Bob, could you fill us in on that?
I don't know what you're
I believe that
referencing.
there was a $2 million reimbursement.
Oh, we still have, we have not done our final submittal. And they don't want us to do that final submittal until we're ready for them to come and do the audit. We're not ready for them to come and do the audit until we can hopefully address some of these issues. So,
That's not how I understood it. I understood it that there was a reimbursement that was available and has been available in the last few years that was not made by the town of Bolton and could have been made by the town.
yes, and that is our final reimbursement that we have not submitted. That is correct. That is correct. And we have basically, as you know, the project is completely closed out, and we have not submitted that. We talked about, and that was a specific question, as Kristen can verify, can we do that and then submit a final? And they said, no, we want you to submit it as a final.
Because Michelle Dixon is the person at the, you want me to come back up there again, or can I?
Please.
Thanks. This way everyone understands it's really complex.
Michelle Dixon, the person that Joyce referred to before, is the person that we are working with at the State Department of Ed in the Grants and Facilities Office. She, too, is like, I think, the third or fourth person since this project as well. And, they want it closed out. She made the comment that we moved and found dusty files of Bolton, and we want it closed out. She did tell us that. And she asked, what about this reimbursement? And Joyce very pointedly asked her the question, do we apply for that first and then close it out, or do we do it all together? Because that was still, to your point, it was still sitting there left to make the request. She said, at this point, we're not doing two pieces, put it all together and finish the process. So,
We have to wait to get the FF&E issue straightened out.
at this point, we have to get all issues straightened out in order, and the change order issue, in order to apply for that final piece, as well as close it out. Because I think had we applied for it a year or two ago, you know what I mean, we would have applied for it a year or two ago, and then we would have closed it out. That was my understanding from what she was saying. Wouldn't you agree that that was her message? But at this point, they don't want us waiting any longer. They want us to do it as one swell swoop,
So we'll have one final closeout.
one piece.
So what are we going to do to make sure that this gets done on a timely basis? And could this board get monthly updates? And not just, well, it's being worked on, but monthly updates as to phone calls that are made, next steps that come out of those phone calls, so that we as a board can have a handle on this? Because I feel like, this is all news to me, and I feel like we have a responsibility to be much more on top of this than we have been in the last, since the high school project was actually done. So what kind of follow-up could we expect?
Well, go ahead.
First of all, I think the FF&E and the change order issues were news to the two of us. We had no idea. So that was news to us. While we were looking for, some various information, just because we know that how thorough their audits are, and that's what we were looking for. So I have no issue, as the board meets, telling you what we've done during that prior month. And that's under properties and facilities. I was going to talk about the meeting that we had and about going in and getting the information on Thursday, and that will help determine where we go. Finance has been combing through the archives trying to find records. Kristen and her staff have been combing through the archives trying to find records.
Okay, so my request is for specific updates every month, and not just,
Well, if there's nothing to report, I mean,
well, I would
I mean-
think that from month to month, there should be something to report. Now, I really feel like this state person has said, this is a dusty file, I can't believe that it's been hanging around this long. Now I think that the schedule, our schedule should be accelerated on trying to put these pieces together. And if there's nothing done for a month, I think that's a big gap.
well, wait a minute. If we're working on a hit piece, I might understand where you're going. But if we're trying to solve an issue that is an issue that's developed not because of one side or other side, but I think the Board of Ed and us are working diligently to work this issue out. And one that simply came up that neither one of us knew about. And we were in what we thought in the final process of doing the closeout. That's how come they went out there and they were looking at, are there any issues that we might see that would slow this closeout out? And that's where this came about. So we're at the point now, okay, we've gone that way. We know what issues there are, and now it's dealing with those issues. Deal with those issues, and we move forward. I would suspect that within our next meeting, obviously, things would have progressed significantly for that point, fully in at that point. But this is where we are. We're probably doing, it's moving at a far faster pace now that we've had these joint meetings with the state. And since we're all working to finish it quickly, I think it'll proceed quickly from this point.
I think it's a failure somewhere along the line, we had a public building commission here. We have a staff person who was working on this. I would expect that we had a complete project file that was kept up to date. I can understand we've gone through finance directors, and I can understand that we've gone through superintendents of schools, but we've had a first selectman and an administrative officer who've been in office for this entire project. And I'm disheartened by the fact that there's not a project file we can pull things from.
When you speak of a project manager, since I'm new to this, because, did we have a clerk of the works that was?
No,
We didn't hire a clerk of the works for this project?
no.
Is there a reason why we didn't hire a clerk of the works?
Gilbane acted as a construction manager at risk. When you do that, you usually do not have a clerk of the works. I did attend the greater majority of the Public Building Commission meetings, but what happens with a school project is correspondence and submittals are done through the superintendent and a sign-off there through their office. Our finance director is copied on a lot of things. Not the PBC, no. That's where this gap was created. When the files that are left are basically, in finance, it's the payments. It's the invoices and the payments. Things such as change orders to the state for construction change orders are submitted through the superintendent. PBC, and now we're talking back several years, so forgive my exact memory. PBC would act on a change order. We need to change this light switch. We need to change this covering to this. Gilbane would bring 10 or 15 change orders to every meeting. Those were not construction change orders. They were approved by PBC, but what they would do is periodically lump all of those together as a change order to the state.
Right.
PBC had individually approved them, so it did not come back to PBC to approve the change order to the state. It would get generated from Gilbane, usually,
To Ann Walsh.
to whomever or Lori.
Was Ann Walsh a Board of Education employee?
Ann Walsh
Yes.
was Paul Smith's secretary.
Okay, thank you.
Because honestly, I called her last week too.
You're right.
I called everybody that
Yeah.
I knew that had any possible connection.
Yeah.
I
Or,
called everyone I knew.
Who had any possible connection to this project, including Paul Smith. I spoke to Joe Maselli. Casal called Ann Walsh, who now works in South Windsor, my home. The architect from the project, whose firm went belly up, is working on the project in South Windsor, down the road from my house. So Ann Walsh called her, and she called Casal. So, we're trying every avenue known to man. What
Yeah.
Ann Walsh shared with us was that they would receive information through PBC or through Gilbane or through the architect. Here's what you got to fill out. Here you go.
Yeah.
Plop it into the form and send it. So it didn't, although it got generated out of the superintendent's office, and that's what happens, that information comes from other sources because they weren't part of the Public Building Commission. Although I believe Paul Smith attended most, if not all, of the meetings, still didn't sit on the commission and so would, would receive the information.
Because most of the changes would be acted on by the PVC, but they're not, but let's say a group of changes were made at one meeting and then at another. They would be lumped together, maybe two or three, in one change order that's submitted to the state. So a group of change orders that may have occurred at one meeting may not have been submitted to the state until
No.
another group was done, and then they were packaged together and sent forward. So.
Right, they were
That's how that
put
process
together
works.
into a lot of little change orders were put into a change order to the state to address. And those specifically were not voted on by PBC because they had approved each little individual one, or had denied each
So what
individual.
we're talking about here is the difference between, I think the numbers that I heard from the Board of Ed were, Bolton spent $1.2 million on the FF&E budget, and the original budget was $879,000 or so. So we're talking about a $400,000 difference that has not been, is not accounted for in writing, that we might not get reimbursed for if we can't produce the written evidence that it was approved. Is that the bottom line?
What was told at the meeting the other day was that we can come up with emails that talk about Bolton's original budget was set, but that was estimates, and that as we move forward with the project, that there were more needs that the school wanted in both technology and furniture, that if we had funds available, that's what we would do. And so that was the theory that was taken forward. And they didn't get everything they wanted in the end, in all reality, and you can talk to, Joe Maselli.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah, or Joe. Joe was
But
a real
there
pusher too
was
on that. Right.
additional things for FF&E, which includes technology, that were put in beyond what that original estimate was. The original estimate had, we thought that the cost of construction would be this much. We were at a time in bidding where we came in here that gave us some of that flexibility, and technology, as you know, changes all the time. So also when things were planned, the need was not here anymore, it was here.
I guess
Joyce?
I'm just trying to get a handle on what the best and the worst case scenario is here.
Well,
There's that, and there is also the change order that they're claiming was not approved by them. And that was, I believe, $500,000.
So we've got a $500,000 change order that's kind of in a gray area, and we've got about a $400,000 gap on the FF&E
Correct.
budget.
Correct.
So we're looking at $900,000 of possible, not reimbursable expenses.
Not eligible
Not
for the
eligible.
grant.
For grant.
It's not
Okay.
reimbursable. We don't get 100% of anything.
So out of the 900,000, let's say if we don't show evidence of any of this 900,000, what is the fiscal impact to the town of
Let's see,
Bolton?
what's the percentage? About 50?
No, it's actually like a 42%, 43%, but we don't
We're
know
back to
what
around
the
that
change
400,000.
is.
We're back to that. That's really.
So we're
We-
talking about a $400,000 problem.
We don't know that for sure because they've not taken into account the choice extra money that comes into play either. So there's lots of open pieces. We don't have a good.
You can take that out and
You
take
can
it to
just
your
carry it.
seat.
No, I'm good. No. So I just want to go back because I don't know if it was Bobby or Joyce had made reference to the grant. So I want to be clear what that is. It's a bonus, and it's a bonus based on the number of choice students that are in the high school
Right.
on October 1st of the year we close out the project.
Okay, yeah.
I will share with you, for many reasons, we agree
Right.
it is in our best interest to try to close this out this year, for a variety of reasons.
Yep.
Also of which is, I believe our largest number at the high school is this year,
Meaning 2016 or 17?
meaning the 16-17 school year we are in right now. So our October 1 numbers are the numbers that, should we be able to close this out prior to June 30th, will be the numbers that determine, and the percentage is up to 10%. We're not going to be at 10. We're going to be somewhere between 6 and 8. My figuring. I'll wait for the state to acknowledge that that's accurate, but that's what I am guesstimating that it will be. So that's one of the reasons, for your knowledge, that several years ago, we increased the enrollment of choice students at Bolton High School, was to put Bolton in a place where we could actualize more funds for the town of Bolton with regards to this project.
And when we applied for the project, we had,
8, 6,
I was going to say 7, or, I mean, it was a,
very small number. So we are sitting at 20 as of October 1st of this year.
So there are a number of factors
yes.
involved in
Yes.
where the funds, where are we going to be fund-wise at the end of this process?
Correct. I mean, they did indicate to us, they would like to see us, they gave us timelines. If you can get us everything by March 1st, you might get your money by the end of May. Maybe. And that was provided, they have to come and audit and do all those things. But they seem rather interested in expediting the process of closing out this project, which is to our benefit, I think, with regards to the state of the state, if we can do it this year.
Right. Agreed. Thank you.
I'm gonna sit back.
Well, Liz, thank you for coming tonight. I think we dealt with everything no, but it worked out well. No, I'm glad you came, because it saved us having to meet again and go through the same conversation. So I appreciate, thank you very much, and
One last question before we
you
wrap
may.
up. Liz Kruger, Toomey Road, Chair of the Board of Ed. So again, I'm new to this whole process and the high school project. You keep saying that Gilbane is the one who initiated it when showed up at the meetings with all of these. Wouldn't they have the file of all of them? Can we ask them?
Well, we had talked about looking at some of those things, but we wanted to see what the state really had or didn't have. That's what we talked about. We just met with the state last week. I mean, it's not, we just
A week ago Monday, yesterday.
Yeah, we could go,
Yes.
we could go Monday.
Okay. Well, let me know
We're
if
trying to
we need
see-
to request or ask or
No.
whatever we can do to help. And
But if they generated it, but we didn't get it signed and sent in, we're in the same place.
okay.
So if we find something in emails that shows some of this, then we're in good shape. And the architect also generates some of the things. They're the FF&E. It's not Gilbane for the FF&E. It was the architect.
Okay.
That was Schoenhart. They were bought out by Fletcher Thompson. Before the project was complete, Angela quit. Fletcher Thompson
Yeah.
took a
It
sabbatical for a
sounds like it's
while.
the perfect storm of people leaving
now
and
it's
changing
back.
hands.
Yes, and we ran into issues. We couldn't close out the project earlier. We ran into the environmental issues, that we had to have that clean record.
Right.
And then we ran into the LEED certification.
Okay. And so I'm clear, the emails that we're looking for is sort of the tail end of Paul Smith, and then the interim superintendent would have those,
Yes,
Got that
the,
there.
the.
is what we're searching.
The books that.
Yeah, the two
have
big bucks.
only go through early 2012 of correspondence with the state on any of this, and it's all Paul Smith, and that's it.
So
So
there's
there's that
the
time
end of-
period where you had this, particularly dealing with the furniture and equipment.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right. Thank you.
On a much lighter note. Take a breath. Arlene Fiano, I'm here for the Bolton Heritage Farm Commission. I'm also here with Historic Commission. We're looking forward to 2020 when the town celebrates its 300th birthday. And we are considering different things to start planning and don't want to begin before it's time, but don't want time to slip, because when you're talking about historic venues, to get people engaged, it's often years in advance to get them on a calendar. So with that being said, we're curious to know what the town is planning, and is there a commission, and when will it start, and who will be involved, and so.
Well, good point, because one of at least my goals anyways, was to have, I was targeting July 1st of this year, to have a commission in place. A little early in the middle of the budget process, we were going to bring it up, I mean, not bring it up at least until March. Since you brought it up, you kind of got ahead of the game. In the past, various boards have dealt with it slightly different, but they basically put together a committee, trying to make it up from the various groups, participating groups within the town, such as fire department, your groups, schools, to whatever, through the schools, the Board of Ed, and other, the Historical Society, and groups like the Lions Club, Women's Club, and representatives from our board as well. And that will be the goal anyway, so that's where we are. And it takes a good year and a half to put that together. So we're coming up in 2020, that would be 2.5 years. Yeah.
And there was a Founder's Day Fund created several years ago that as different things have occurred, we've tried to put some initial funding in it, but there's not much left. And not knowing what the end goal is, it's difficult to fund it. So this will be helpful in trying to, towns have spent $40,000 to $100,000 to more on a big anniversary celebration. And in the economic times, it's perhaps more challenging to get funds like that from a budget.
Couple $100.
Do we know what's in the Founders Fund?
Off the top of my head, I cannot tell you, and I would
Could you
not.
report back to us for our next meeting, please?
Yes, it's actually in the audit, so.
Oh, it is in the audit?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
I can look it up.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's our goal, and it appears obviously that you're one of the volunteers, right?
You mean to spearhead the whole thing?
Well, to be on the committee anyways.
I would be in.
I just assumed that you'd be, well, see, so we can start building our list right now.
You all heard it.
No, I'm serious. I mean, we cannot let enthusiasm go to waste. I'm not about to, and I appreciate obviously, you've been around, not as long as I have, but certainly your roots are as long as mine are. And as everyone else in this room, at least in that corner of the table. But, and again, we appreciate you coming out, and I'm glad you brought that up. Saves me having to bring it up again next month. But we can now begin the process by sending out letters to various boards that we are going to be forming that, people who are interested, to send their into the Selectmen. That will be forming the board by July 1st. Well, that's a board decision, but I mean, I think that's a rough target. Yes, Barbara.
Okay, more good news anyway.
Thank you, Barbara.
Things, okay. Yeah,
Thank you for the letter. It was very
you're
good. Thank you.
Barbara, I'm not tweeting, I'm lettering. Barbara Modio. I just wanted to make you aware, you probably already are, but if you're not, that the Hop River Trail was featured as a Trail of the Month in the Rails to Trails magazine. It was all over the internet and all kinds of sites, so. If you didn't know that, I have 2 copies for you. So that was really good news. And the other thing, I promised you that I would come and tell you the results of the infrared counter every time I get them. We do have preliminary results, but they are not for public release yet because there were some inconsistencies. For instance, the one that I check all the time, the glue had given out, so we lost 2 days on the count, and it was the 24th and the 25th. So we have only raw data, but I can tell you that we did have over 1,000 hits on that little section of the trail that just goes from, say, the bridge to the tunnel. So
What's the time frame?
a month.
About roughly 30 days?
Yep. The 20th to the 23rd. Yeah.
And that's between the Andover Bridge and the tunnel?
No, it's
which bridge?
probably at
Which bridge are
the
you referring to?
the tunnel. So I'm talking about
Tunnel and,
At the notch.
probably the Notch parking lot, because the counter's right by the tunnel. So I would assume that most people parked there and went past it that way, but, I'm not sure which way they came, but that's where the count is.
I'm sure.
They go reverse, too.
Right.
It picks them up both
It
directions.
gets you both ways.
But it doesn't get people that get on at Steele's Crossing or...
Correct. Unless
Unless
they
they
Unless they
come
go
that
through the
way.
tunnel.
If they go through the tunnel,
It's anyone that passes through that passageway,
which,
either way.
so for winter, that's pretty good for, an unplowed section, and,
Yeah.
the tunnel is a little frightening for some people to go through. So I was pretty heartened by that.
Cool.
That's
Thank
all.
you, Barbara.
Yeah, you're welcome.
More good news, too. Sylvia Onpu, Stonehenge Lane. I just wanted to update you, we are working hard on the Connecticut, or the National Trails Day event on the Hop River Trail. We are collaborating with Andover, Planning and Zoning. Coventry may also be coming on board. We also Bike Walk Bolton Women's Group, and then we have representation from Arlene from our Planning and Zoning. So we have a good group of people. We've gathered some historians and naturalists in town who have agreed to participate. Hans and Susan DePold will be there to provide information about the Bolton Heritage Farm and the whole historical part there, as well as other people in town. So we're very excited. We have a concept. We're working on the application right now, so this is definitely a go. So we'll keep you posted as we keep working on that. So I'm very excited. Lots of good energy and ideas. I just have one question. I just wanted an update. I'm not sure, I don't see it on the agenda related to the DOT and the missing link or the section between the Hop River Trail and Bolton Notch Plaza. And I know they have created a plan. What's the status? What's the next step?
That's on item A,
6A.
6A.
Okay.
It's all part of that.
All part of that?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask questions at that time, or?
Sure. Anyone else? Okay, go right on to approval of minutes, and if any of you guys want to leave, don't be embarrassed, just get up and leave, that's quite all right. We will not be... First item on our item 3A is approval of our regular meeting, which was held on January 11th. Will someone move those minutes, please?
So moved.
Here a second.
I'll second it.
Additions, corrections?
I have a couple of pretty minor ones, mostly spelling. Under item 2, public comment, the first paragraph, second to last sentence, the word buses, that just has one S in it. Moving down, second bottom, same, but first page, second to last paragraph, Kim Welch's name should be W-E-L-C-H. I'm sure that our temporary clerk last month wasn't familiar
Right.
with the names the way we are. Item 6A, a new business, there's, it says BSE groups, and then there's an FI right in front of the word information, so I think that should just come out, that FI is extraneous there. And then on the next page, so that would be still under new business, item D, the full paragraph that begins with my name. There's a sentence that begins, G. Marion, concern was possible confusion. That's kind of a broken sentence there, so I think it should read, G. Marion's concern. So G. Marion's, if you add an apostrophe S, G.
Is that the
Marion's.
third sentence
It's
down?
the, Yeah,
Okay, there it is. I
third
got- okay.
line, yeah. G. Marion's concern was possible confusion, since all of the items have been partially funded at prior, okay. And she questioned the publicity about the upcoming meeting.
Okay,
And so just change the word asked to she.
okay.
And then there's also a misspelling of a name under new business, item G. That's what I wrote down anyway. It was Kristen's first name. Kristen Heck's first name was misspelled.
With a C instead of a K?
I.
It's E-N instead of I-N.
Oh,
Did you find it? Because I can't find, I think I had written down new business, letter G. Do you see where it is?
Last line, next to the last line.
Yes, thank you. Okay, it's the same paragraph we were just working on.
oh, it's right down the bottom.
Yes,
Yes.
right.
Okay,
Those are all the suggested changes I had.
okay. Maker and second, you going to accept those changes?
Yep.
Part of it? Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes as corrected, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Second item is item 2B, which is the motion to approve the minutes of our first workshop on the 17th.
So
moved, so moved. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. Any additions, questions, or comments on that? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Pardon me. Item 3D, which is approval of our special meeting, which was held on January 24th. Someone move those minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Yeah.
Thank you. Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. And finally, item 3D, which is the minutes of our, again, January 24th, but our budget workshop. Someone move those?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. Any comments, questions, additions? Hearing none, all in favor of approving those minutes as presented, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. A lot of pages. Item 4, which is a correspondence, we have a letter of resignation from the Economic Development Commission from Scott Rich, who is a member of the Board of Education. And someone moved to accept Scott.
We accept that with regret and thank him for his service.
Second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Thank you. Yep, Scott's been an active member on that group for 5 years. And again, we appreciate what you've done. All in favor of accepting the Scott's resignation with regret and with a note of appreciation for his work on the commission, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. I'm sorry. Under 5A, nothing. Under 6A, Charter Oak Greenway shared use path and path extension. We have the Trails Committee. I'm going to report that part and I can feel. In the Trails Committee, we did meet. We did go over the final set of proposals and plans and the surveys that were done. We found some minor issues. Mainly, we're naming, not in their work. Very interesting data. There's on the back wall. You can see there's a full, not in there on the side. There's a full map of that route over there with the changes on it. Part of what took a while, they did a survey of the entire route, and what they did differently is really mark off where the state right-of-way actually is, and also where it was thought to be in other mappings. And you'll see variations if you look at that through there. So that, we felt that was important, and it's important for the residents along the way so they can see that, and all that data can be made available from them. And as we indicated before, we are going to have a final public presentation on that, and I'd like to set March, God, I'm sorry, is it 22nd?
Second.
At
March
7
2nd.
March 2nd, here we go. March 2nd, 7 PM here at the Town Hall. We will have a final presentation and Q&A to follow. And go from there. So we need to, well, we need to. I think-
Well, it's the Trails Committee, I
That's
think
right.
that's really holding
Yeah,
this,
it's holding
not the
that,
Board of
right, that's
Selectmen,
true.
so.
So we can make a final recommendation to the board, so the board will then make its recommendation.
May I add a couple things?
Oh, please.
BS.
I can't talk anymore.
Okay, all right. This survey, this work that we're talking about was done under a DEEP grant. The grant was just under $72,000, and the only cash that the town of Bolton put toward this project was $3,600. So we got an excellent work product, which is that map you see on the wall. There's also a set of very detailed plans that are available in Patrice's office. And we also got a feasibility report that discusses the possibility of locating the trail along that corridor. The Trail Committee has not spoken as a group, nor has the whole Board of Selectmen, about the next step, whether we are going to support constructing this segment. That has not been discussed as a board, and I hope that we do have that conversation at some point, but that has not been discussed yet, so there's been no decision about that. But I'm very pleased with the work that BSC did, and I'm very pleased that for only $3,600, the town got excellent work products. And I also wanted to report that about a different segment of the trail, which is the segment that begins at the Manchester line and goes through Notch Pond. The Bond Commission met on February 1st and approved the funding for that project, which means that it will get done. So that was a big nugget, and we have the funding for that. So that will be between Manchester Town Line and Bolton Notch Pond, which will mean that anybody taking the Hop River Trail from Columbia or down from Vernon, that's going to be a major intersection right at the pond, and they can turn and go east and just keep going. So that's very exciting news as well.
Yeah, that one was, without that bonding, it was in real jeopardy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Joyce, you got a little report?
Yes, on,
So these are from Sandy.
Oh, thank you.
yes, and to go back on the information that's posted in BSC's group, that did go out in a Bolton bulletin today, and it does take you to a link on the website, and there is information up there. The map is up there for people to look at. Couple of other items. You asked about the so-called missing link from the Notch Pond to Quarry Road. In telephone discussion with DOT, with Marissa, they actually did have a few comments come in. They still have not done their final report. We just followed up with her last week again in preparation for this meeting to see where they were, and they haven't produced it yet. So it's probably a month, maybe 2 months out. Don't know for sure.
So they didn't give you a time frame?
No. The tie from Manchester to the commuter parking lot that Gwen was referencing that was just financed, that going out to bid has every priority in their books right now. And you're talking about basically the same lead people. The last item I wanted to talk about is the, as you were all notified, we did receive the grant from DEEP for the former Route 6 property. And staff is working on, I'm not sure if it's going to be an RFQ or an RFP to get out on that. We still do not have the documents from the state yet awarding it. We only have the letter. And there's been some subsequent timing on some of those types of grants, and DEEP has pulled back funding additional type grants. It's one of the sweeps that is occurring, but we were assured, Lori Giannotti from DEEP assured that this one has already been awarded. We don't have the paperwork, but it's not in jeopardy, so that's important for us as well.
Joyce,
Yes.
quick question. Are we, how much do we have to come up with for that grant, for that whole package?
Well, there's a match, but we'll split that match with Coventry. And once we get back in, because again, will we spend the whole 102? I'm not sure.
What's the worst-case scenario for us?
We're at about 10,000 at worst case.
Okay.
But we've also talked to Coventry about perhaps splitting it more proportionally. We are also talking about splitting it over the 2 fiscal years. It's just going to be a timing issue. And staff time, other costs are all the in-kind.
So in-kind
Yeah.
services counts on this one?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
works
Yes.
it back. So
Okay.
you can start at that
So
as
it's
your
not
worst
a,
case and work back.
it's not a cash. This one will not have, we don't anticipating it having as much in-kind value as the grant that Gwen was talking
Yeah,
about
we had a
earlier.
huge in-kind on that one.
Okay.
Yes.
Question.
Just a quick question, sorry, going back to the missing link, once the DOT has completed their report, what are the next steps? Do you meet with them, when is it available?
Well, once we get the report here with us, we can see, basically want to see what it says, and then it's up to, I think they made it clear, but we speak with them, they made it clear at this time, they obviously don't have any desire or funds to financially go forward with it there. And quite frankly, it's been our position in the past that whatever happens, we want it to be a part of a total interchange, realignment and reconstruction. I personally am not in favor of putting a path in for $2 million that we're going to tear out in another few years and you know, to correct that horrible intersection. I mean, in this fiscal time, I don't think the state is either. I think I think they made it, I hopefully made it obvious at that hearing, that meeting we had, that in this fiscal climate, very difficult to do that side project and not have it a part as a major overhaul project.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly understand that. My understanding is the major project of redoing that intersection is probably not going to happen in my lifetime because I-84 in Hartford is a much higher priority and they have so many other higher priorities. So
Well, hopefully we'll change the administration and have different priorities. I'm being very candid. I think that is the governor's priorities. I don't believe it's the state of Connecticut's priorities. I think it's an absurd priority. Putting a tunnel to Center Hartford. I think there's better. The state of Connecticut has better use of their dollars in improving our other roads around here than putting a mega dollars into that. I mean, that's my editorial comment, but I think that's a view that's widely held. Question. I'm sorry. Do you have another question, Sylvia?
So at this point, you're to get, the report will come to you. I assume the Trails Committee would review it, but I mean, will the public get to see it or?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. We'll make it a part, again, we'll make it, something like that. We'll try to get it in electronic form and put it up on our website, and then we'll have probably we'll have a meeting. I'd like to see what it says first, and so that we can report it back to everyone, either as a part of our meeting here or as an informal, informational meeting.
Is part of it coming out of the two workshops they had, the one in Coventry and the one at Eastern, is that where? No?
No. What, and that's, though, we certainly, the Eastern Gateway study, as we get this information, we're making sure whatever source we get it from, the other sources get it. So like DOT will get a copy of BSC's. The Gateways people will get a copy of that. They'll get a copy of anything we get from DOT. So we're trying to make sure that all of those groups get any information that we're producing or receiving in our communities.
So it makes it a part of their study. Because it's critical that it be a part of any transportation change that goes in here. I think that was our feelings initially when we got into this. When we first looked at that, at bike trail, is it feasible? And if it is, it has to be a part of any, and the state began working on the 44 project. But it has to be an integral part of that whole transportation, multimodal transportation through there. Because right now it's a nightmare and it's only going to get worse. Yes.
Well, I agree. Just one caveat, when this trail gets finished, like Gwen talked about from Manchester to Bolton Notch.
Right.
You have 1,000 passings of that trail thing on that. When that gets connected.
I was going to go through the roof.
The increased potential for people to be using this section as a multimodal transit area and wanting to access it, the Hop River Trail from Route 44 is going to go through the roof. And get 1,000 people. And the mantra, build it and they will come. You've been on the Farmington Valley Trail that has tens of thousands of people riding that trail now. And 10 years ago, there was not a soul on that chunk of road. So I think about that, that feature.
But that's all part, that's all a part of the pressures that can be put on DOT to resolve that issue. I mean, we are, right now, I can't say we're a lone voice in the woods, but when you have a pressure group that's diverse rather than this, it makes a difference. And like you say, I currently agree. When that and hooked together, I think everyone agrees between hikers and bikers, it's going to explode. And from that, I think we can build a strong interest group that at least that will help push the state. We need something.
Looking at it from the strictly financial perspective.
Yep.
The whole idea behind what they've done so far is to prove that it can be done.
Oh, we're talking about the 44.
I'm talking about the missing link as we talked about.
Right.
They've proved that it can be done.
Right.
So, at least from my perspective, I wouldn't want them to spend any more engineering money on that until it becomes part of an entire package. Because if they engineer that whole thing with moving 2 lanes of the highway and all that other garbage that they talked about, they're gonna blow $1 million in just designing something that when they come to put in the road is not going to exist anymore. So I would just assume they know that it can be done and that we want it done as part of a whole package, as opposed to them going out and designing this whole missing link all by itself that I don't think can get funded without the whole package.
Right. Yes.
Thank you.
I thought that the 6 and 44 thing was on the review. Am I mistaken?
It is a needed project, but unfunded.
At this stage of the game. CROG it's on the CROG list of needed funders. It's and so it's one of those that are being pushed to DOT, and it's not funding at this time. I think a lot of it depends upon federal funding coming in the next few years and also state funding coming up. And obviously, both portions, both government portions, part of their stated goals with infrastructure. Let's see what, as they say, what walks and money talks. So we shall see. And a lot depends upon, I think a lot's going to depend upon, what type of finances come through, federal financing down to the state. We know the state's in difficult situations. They're going to have to really prioritize what they do. And I would hope that they start looking at safety issues before they start looking at other issues. And what we have is absolutely a safety issue, but we shall see. Any other questions? Sure. Lower Bolton Lake status, we have not, last year at this time, we've made several tests on the ice and gone through this year. The ice melts so fast you can't get out and test it. But interestingly enough, that the water flow is moving right along. These rains and everything we've had has certainly helped the water table around that area. So, I mean, on a positive way. And hopefully, it'll be interesting to see this spring as to where we are, because the lake was improving as we were moving along through the fall, early winter. But, you know, that's what monitoring is all about. We have to monitor. Budget. Joyce, we have a sheet of the.
Couple of things on the budget. You have the monthly report. We're 49.67% expense compared to 50.49% last year and 50.14% in FY15. I can answer any questions you have or get the information.
Do you have any sense where we are as far as highway department overtime building and ground snow removal overtime this year versus last?
We're fairly comparable to last year, but not the year before.
It's real close to last year at this time, so it depends on what the next 30 days, you know.
It depends on what Thursday does.
Yeah, well, that's one day.
30 days.
Fortunately, a good part of that's during daytime, it's regular pay, so it doesn't.
Daytime, week time, not Sunday.
Right.
You know, all of those good
Exactly, all
things.
those issues that
Not
make
holidays.
make it a less costly storm.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you got to plan these storms.
Got a plan, have them every week.
You also have the tax collection summary through the end of December, showing that the current year levy were 100.90%. Just remember that is based on a 98% collection, so we're not over what we tax people. It's based on a 90% collection. Supplemental motor vehicle had just gone out, so we're at 5.10 for that. Prior year, we're at 76%, interest and fees 60%, so all of those were at 99.86% collected of the 98% we budgeted.
So we're doing,
So for all intents and purposes, we've got a 98% collection.
yeah,
Pretty close, yes.
yeah, at least.
We're
Yep.
extremely close,
Yep.
yes. So if the supplemental motor vehicle comes in anywhere close,
Yeah,
We're
we
over.
will have met it
right.
and be over. The last item that you had, I just handed out tonight because just received
Just came.
this. This is the grand list numbers. Just completed the grand list, and real estate is up 0.5%. Personal property is an increase of about 3.3%. Motor vehicle up about 1.9%. So comparing 15 to 16, we're up about 0.7% for the grand list. Board of Assessment appeals hearings can certainly change this, but that's where we are. We had 7 properties that had come forward under the crumbling foundations and were taken into account for this grand list. The major increase in the grand list growth can be attributed to Munson's expansion that hit this grand list and Simon I's expansion that hit this grand list.
Joyce, what is the effect of the buildings, the houses with the foundations? Are they reducing their assessment? And if so, by how much do we know?
It depends on the condition. If you remember the discussions under the crumbling foundations under CROG, that one of the things was the assessors got together and came up with a common way to address it in all of the towns based on structural engineering reports, and depending on where you are, you've got so much reduced. So I can't tell you for those 7 properties, each one, how they were. I just talked to Helen tonight when she was in, but they followed that structure.
They can go well up to 50%.
Up to 50% of their assessment? Okay.
And I don't believe we're at that condition with any of our houses, but that could change.
The-
We also know, we think that there's a lot more than 7 out there. And, you know, I'm going to talk about crumbling foundations a little bit under the CROG report, but people don't wish to come forward yet because while there's money being proposed for testing, there's not any funds to help you address it. And so you start the clock ticking with the insurance company to put in a claim that's probably going to be denied. And then there's issues with that. And, you know, basically you're telling your bank that you have a house, if you have a mortgage,
It's not worth it.
It's
it's
upside
not
down.
worth it. So people
Don't
are
wanna do that either.
extremely hesitant
Very-
to come
very
forward so
reluctant.
far.
Because the state has talked about a lot of issues, but they haven't talked about a resolution that will financially assist the homeowner. And that's the reluctance. And just a comment on general foundations, but the term is used, crumbling foundations. Well, we don't, the ones that we have here up to date have been, there's cracks, but nothing to the point where it's affecting the integrities of the properties, but they're there. And how this works beyond this point, who knows, because it's all new. I mean, the issues that we've seen in Towin and Wellington and Stafford, I mean, you literally can grab it and peel it off. It's that,
Or put your hand through it.
yeah, it's literally that bad.
And there, to follow up on that, there's homes in other communities that the building official has gone out and has said, we need to step outside to finish this conversation. This is not a safe structure anymore. So we're fortunate that we don't believe we're at that yet. But again, people are reluctant to come forward because once that happens, you've now lost your entire house. You're done.
On the average is 200 grand just for, 150 for a real simple Cape or regular colonial type, and then 200 and up for anything more complex. Because they haven't come up with a solution other than jack the house, rip the foundation out, and report. I mean, anybody comes up that they can deal with that solution is going to make a fortune.
So if somebody's got a crumbling foundation, they want to sell their house, good luck.
Right.
They will potentially be able to sell it, but if you have a $400,000 or $500,000 house, you'll be lucky if you can sell it for $100,000.
Right.
It's whatever, it's whatever the cost of repair is going to be on top, off of your, what would be a normal market price, plus someone's going to say, I'm going to keep an extra $50,000 just for safety, so that's,
Oh, yeah.
so basically,
And
and most people aren't, unless you have a zero mortgage, you're in a position you can't sell, and what's going to happen? Here's my keys, adios, I'm gone.
Yeah.
And I think that you're going to have lending institutions taking these things over. And they identified what now, roughly 4,000? Or they're estimating approximately 4,000?
well over.
Well over 4,000 in our region, and that's not including what's in Massachusetts and also in Rhode Island, so.
And the problem goes further, that you can spend that $150,000 or $200,000 on addressing it, but you still have the same pink counter, kitchen, and other things it doesn't increase the value of your house
Oh,
at
no, that
all.
just saves, that brings
It
you back to
saves
where
it.
you thought you were.
Yes.
Yeah. That's really unfortunate. It is a devastating situation for those folks that have that issue, particularly that have the severe deterioration.
And the last item is tomorrow is the release of the governor's budget. We've gotten bits and pieces of information from that. some good news, some bad news. Overall, it's probably more bad than good.
Yes.
One of the things that he's proposing is an increase in the prevailing wage for projects. Right now, it's $100,500,000, and he's proposing for doing a project renovation, going to $500,000, new going to $1 million, which has a huge impact on our projects, because we have a lot of projects under that, and so it would save money on prevailing wage. On the other side, some of the things that he's talking about is certainly restructuring the formula for ECS so that towns that are wealthier will lose funds, and if they have good test scores and everything, they're not as needy, it will lose funds. And the last one is the teacher's pension fund is woefully underfunded. That has been, it's not something towns, boards of ed negotiated all, it's set by the state, but he wants towns to contribute towards that fund now, and a percentage. So after tomorrow, hopefully CCM will be able to go through and cost to try to do some runs of what that's going to mean to Bolton and to every other community. But there's going to be lots of things in that, before we were talking a 10 to 15% reduction in the state aid. Now it could be far greater, because we could be, when you balance that with, we may have to pick up some additional costs too.
And the other item, which basically kind of puts the cherry on that rotten cake, is his other proposal is, that 2.5% cap, that increased spending that the legislature had set on, his recommendation is to get rid of that. Why? Because towns would be forced to spend beyond that to fill that gap. So obviously, this is one of those years that I can't see his proposals really going forward where they are, but there's no question that the educational budget is going to be impacted. It's a matter of how much. But it's distressing that you're punished for excellence, and that's basically what it is. If you have a successful school system with excellence, you're being punished, period. Mm-hmm. And if you're in a loser system, in a system that I had worked in, Hartford system, and it's not because of bad teachers, it is because of horrendous system of administration where, I go back 20 years, more than that, but where people are hired not because of their abilities, because who they know or who they're related to. And that has been, and then they get these gigantic retirement funds, non-teacher. It's the non-teacher portion that's the killer. And if you ever get an opportunity to meet with any of the principals of some of the schools in there, you sit down and talk with them, and it'll break your heart. But that's what their school system is faced with, along with a number of the social problems there.
Social issues are as big a problem as anything in
they are.
in those cities. The other thing that I see as a major issue is how long ago did the teacher's pension, when was that established? The 60s, 40s?
No. That big jump was established in the late.
Not the big jump, but initially, this has been around.
But they have never funded it.
Never
Oh, no.
fund- They always
They-
borrow.
they-
always
they
borrow
have-
from
They had
borrows
up
on it.
until they did the teacher enhancement.
Yes,
And then when the teacher enhancement came up,
that was like 88,
Eight.
89.
10 years after I got out. So,
Yes, and
You
teachers,
you can't not fund something for all these years and then go, oops.
Right.
I mean, somewhere along the line, somebody had to know that this was going belly up eventually.
well, and from teachers' perspective, they don't qualify for Social Security. And so, they need something, and I understand that, and it's not teachers' fault.
No, I'm not
But-
blaming the
No, no, no,
teachers, because
no.
I'm in the same boat as they are without Social Security.
Yes.
So I understand that completely. But what I'm saying is you can't not fund something
Yes.
until 35 years later or 30 years later and now say, oh, we screwed up, we didn't fund it, but now you're going to have to kick in to fund it because we didn't. It's
And-
kind of a,
And they have funded it, but not sufficiently.
right.
Their actuarial is way,
Well, it's
way off. And so, you know, I think the position that everybody is taking from towns' perspectives is if you're going to make us contribute, then give us some power on the other side to help set that.
Well, anything less than 100% actuarial funding, 100% actuarially sound funding is just screwing yourself for the future.
Oh,
There's
yes.
no other way to say it.
Yes.
That's what they've done. You can't look at it and say, you're only 50% funded. Well, if you're 50% funded, eventually that's going to come back and bite you.
Yep.
The
And-
only way to be is 100% funded. Otherwise, you wind up like cities of Bridgeport and Boston, where they're paying their pensions out of the operating budgets today. And
And,
That's-
and that, it ties right back into exactly how we got hit with additional costs for the resident troopers. We're fully expecting that to be at 100% this next year, based on the condition of the state. You know, we snuck by this last year, but with everything else that he's proposing, I don't see how that cannot happen. And it's kind of the same thing, the shifting of costs from the state to the town. And yes, they may not raise taxes, but they're giving us no options. So, more to come.
On D,
I do not have any budget transfers or requests. We will see how the
unemployment.
unemployment claims track this next year. Right now, we have 5,000 in that line item, but that can be 1 month based on our current claims.
Anyone have any question on that? Under ongoing reports, we have something, yeah, we do have some brief subcommittee reports in there. The Finance Administration, we've been working on the hydraulic fracturing ordinance, and Gwen and Joyce did a work over on some of the language on it and discussed it, and we approved the language as you all had put together, and we have now sent this off for our attorney for our final review and to be brought back for action by the board. We also had looked at, we were discussing the review of the draft refuge and recycling fund, and also a draft for the Board of Education, the school activity fund, which our auditor had requested be set up. And again, that's in the process. There's still some editing before it's ready to come back. And if anyone has any questions, we've got, Joyce has got all the material. Be happy to share it anyway. That's it on that set of minutes. That's it. We don't have any others. I'm going on to properties and facilities. Glenn had asked a question in our last meeting. We had discussed that a property next to the high school, and based on our discussion, we had contacted the representative of the owner and discussed with them where our thoughts were as far as the land and its value, and they have not come back yet with anything. So that's where we are on that. On the same subject, on the properties and facilities, one of the things that, and we've been banging this around, and Gwen had mentioned it, Mike had mentioned it, all these capital projects we have looming in the future. I think what I would recommend with the board's approval is to hold a retreat dealing with just those issues. And I know that this is a tough tax season, and it may be, and I don't know if I'm asking you right now, are you working Saturdays there as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I could, if I have enough notice and there's no evening meetings, I could do a morning.
Okay. So we're kind of centering around your availability, maybe if you
Yeah,
could,
I had given Joyce my availability.
okay.
And that's how we scheduled the walkthrough of Notch Road.
Yep.
Yep.
So it's got to be sometime after that.
Yep.
Okay, so based on that, and I'm trying to make it as soon as we can right after that, so we can really get moving on these things. With that, we'll look at what we have, project, I think we have to look at time frame, and also, I think we did have, at one time, I think we still got it, what does 500,000, a million, 2, 3, 4, what does this mean in our bond costs? So we have numbers to work with in projects. So we'll send out, get out this week.
Well, I'll go back and forth with Sandy to see.
Just make sure
try to pick
you're
some
available.
particular dates
We'll
to
pick a
send
couple
out.
dates, and then we'll work off of those, okay? Good, thank you.
With that, Sandy, do you want to talk about Bolton Heritage Farm? Because I
Sure.
know I was tied up in a meeting last Friday, but I know you did a,
Last Friday, we had a pre-contract closeout conference call with the architect, John Butrimovich, Buildings and Ground Supervisor, myself, and Sarah Nelson, our architect. They are substantially complete with all of the work. They've withdrawn from the site. There are some administrative paperwork that has to be filed with the town that the contractor had hoped to have filed by the end of this week. And there will be a representative of the architect's office coming out to meet with John and the contractor to just go through the items that were on the final punch list. So I think I've sent an email to the state of Connecticut asking them as our lien holder on the barn to come out and walk through as well. So it actually looks great. The section in front where that had been the equipment shed and the milk room is now one open area with a lifted roof. So it's that particular section of the barn can probably be used for public assembly once we start getting good weather.
Yeah, it really came out better than I thought it would come out. It really is exceptional.
I was really pleased.
They did a great job, and I thank you all that worked on it. It really came out.
And we are still under budget, so,
That's even better.
yeah.
Anybody else have any comment or question?
Just my question about the silo again.
Yeah, the state has said no paint.
No paint. They won't let us paint it at all?
I don't have that in writing, that's verbal. And they don't like the idea of us painting the cinder blocks on the bottom part of the building, so I've taken that up the ladder one more step to see if the next level up will approve that.
Yeah, the reason I ask about the silo, I asked a couple of questions of old farmers, and one of the reasons they didn't paint silos was because of what was inside them, and the drying effect and the buildup of heat and all that kind of stuff. This is an empty silo.
It is an empty silo today, but the state's position is nobody painted silos
Then,
then, nobody's painting silos now.
Oh, okay. I give up that. I yield to the state.
It's the historical folks.
Okay, that's fine. It's just
revenue sources.
not to my aesthetic palette, so to speak, but that's okay.
We don't have any more new revenue sources coming in. we're still getting building permits, houses, believe it or not. One foundation just went in and started up down the street from me, so I mean, yeah.
Yes, but that particular buildings, I know because we don't have them on, since we don't have a
Oh, they're mean,
doing
yeah.
things.
They don't mean much.
Their fees are not as high as they have been
Oh, yeah.
either.
Oh, yeah.
So, Jill will be going through all of those revenues in the next month and a half to see where we really are and guesstimating for the end of the year and for next year.
Fun is. Meeting on shared services. Well, first of all, I want to thank all the members and Mike and Gwen. Sandy, excuse me, Sandy, I'm having a tough day. For attending the meeting. I thought it was an enlightening meeting. And very positive. And this was a meeting was held at the State Legislative Building. Really, it was a forum on shared services between boards of ed in towns and also other types of shared services. I think one of the more interesting ones was the one that was shared with us with the town of Mansfield. And I frankly, I was pretty excited about it. I talked to Liz about that, and I said, I'd like to have a joint meeting with our board, with your board, and have the town, is he manager?
Manager.
Town manager and whomever he'd like to bring on the education side, do a presentation to us as to how, in their case, how it works, what it does and what it doesn't do. I think it's important for everybody to understand that. I think a lot of the questions when we had very general discussions of what it could do, what it might do, and what it might not do. And here's a situation where they did do it, and here's how it works, and here's what it can do and what it can't do. And it's important we understand that. So with the board's permission, I'd like to go ahead and contact Liz again and say, okay, we'll try and work out a time to meet. So you're already here, Andrew, so I know I'm passing that right along, but I had spoken to Liz about that. And I think it's one of those, as the economy changes in the state, not for the better, and how the state views their assistance to education, particularly for successful towns, I think we have to look at everything we can. So I will do that, and in fact, tomorrow I'll make that contact. And maybe you can just pass that along to Kristen, that we're looking to do that. Get my eyes back on. Just as a report, and it's, kind of sneaking into the joint services. We did do Joyce did complete the reviews of our supervisors, written reports completed. I've also completed my reviews, and I will, as part of a meeting, whether we have a special meeting or part of our next meeting, we'll present a written report to the board and also verbal. So we can go over that. Joyce.
Okay, a couple of items. CROG, I talked about a little bit earlier about crumbling foundations. Actually, Pauline Yoder, who is the interim municipal services director for CROG, did my show today on crumbling foundations. The governor has proposed $5 million in his budget for testing. CDBG is proposing some money in their budget for testing, but we're trying to get them to change it to go beyond testing because, again, people don't want to test and then find out there's no relief. So not sure where that's going to go. I gave you the information. I also went to the hearing last Thursday afternoon, Policy and Development at the LOB, had an informational session hearing on crumbling foundations to share information. This is the packet of information that you have that was distributed at that meeting that talks about various towns and cost to remediate and what CROG has done and the guidelines that we're looking at. With that, we have provided, through CROG, this ad hoc working group, we've gone out and established a qualified vendor list for structural engineering and a qualified vendor list for remediation services. That'll be updated basically quarterly with new names on it. Jim Rupert has served on that to help review some of those applications to see who will be qualified. We're just trying to help people as much as we possibly can. There's quite a bit of information in here. The group has proposed templates for eligibility, whether you're a single household or you're part of a condo or an apartment. A lot of work has been done. We're posting as information that is pertinent to Bolton comes forward. We're trying to post that information on the website as well for people to log into, but they can always go to the CROG website and find all of the information there. Again, with CROG, the other thing, serving on municipal services, one of the big things is the service sharing. So you have a handout of various service sharing efforts between the communities and showing who is a part of it throughout the state or not. Unfortunately, it was not the best copy that we received, so I apologize for the way that it copied, but I don't have it in any other format, but we're in the regional online permitting. We're part of the Capital Region Purchasing Council. We do not share finance, but we do share staff consulting, the software technology. We're not part of VOIP. We're not part of Captain because that's basically for police. We don't share ambulance services because we do not do that. Digital investigations, we're a state police town, so that's not something we do. Fire services, because we're mutual aid, we're part of that. We're also a part of the animal control because we contract with Vernon, so that's considered a shared service. And being part of TN, we're part of dispatch sharing.
What about waste services? Why are we part of a group there?
Because we belong to the, I'm trying to think of the initials, but the Central Connecticut Solid Waste Authority.
Okay.
We're part of that and have participated in the bidding through that, so we're part of that. IT services, we share with the school, so that's a shared service. I can't tell you, well, actually, the refuse is under the other. And because
There's
we.
waste management, waste services is a separate category.
Well, that's interesting, because under other, it includes refuse, but it also includes in there is the insurance, and the town and the Board of Ed are insured as an entity, so we are a part of that. Service sharing, recreation, we're part of. Economic development with the Route 6 Regional Economic Development Group, we're part of that. With the efforts we're doing with Coventry on the Trail, we're a part of that. Education, because we bring in students from other towns, we're with Columbia, we're part of that. So you can see that Bolton actually is a small town. We participate in a lot of shared services. So I thought that would be good information for you to see. I also attended a presentation on responding to crisis. It was the former deputy director of FEMA, and it was a very informational session on that. A lot of points he made you don't think about until it happens. So it was a lot of good information was shared. CCM, you have You've heard me talk about serving on the panel that talked about how we could move forward as a state. This is the final report on that. It talks about shared services, it talks about new revenue sources, it talks about taxes, it talks about a different way to do business. And this has been, forwarded to the state and the governor for their information, and it's very interesting. I think you'll enjoy reading it, and that's why I thought it was worth actually printing out so that you had the information to look at. And, there's lots of conclusions in here. Some are easier, low-hanging fruit than others. It talks about, like, shared services, removing issues with contracts, union contracts as part of it, that lots of times that's a barrier. So I think you'll find that worthwhile. Basically now, whether it's cost, CROG, or CCM, there's not many meetings on various things. CROG has monthly, the other two do not, but it's basically responding to legislation that's being proposed and trying to fight for the towns in the best way possible.
So as things come up that need support,
Yes.
we'll blast out, because it gets critical to contact your legislator. I did want to just go back to one point on the shared services, and I'm sure you all heard this, but I want to reiterate it, is that the success stories we heard there were from bottom up instead of top down. And the biggest concern everybody had there is the ones that the state want to mandate, every one of them were costly and mostly not workable or had issues. The ones that were initiated by various communities or different groups or within a town, those where the success stories are. And I think that's an important lesson. I think it is. I think it basically states the state may be well-meaning, but they just don't get it. That we actually, I don't think they give the communities, small or large, the credit that they deserve. That we're very capable of doing it if you just get out of the way and allow us to do it. So, and I think that whether it was said subtly or overtly at the meeting, I think it was mentioned there, but I mentioned that. Thank you. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I want to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day.
Nice.
We got to go out on a positive note, guys. We are adjourned.